The shackles of humanism. Atheism's flawed values in addressing human suffering. Atheist values are frequently defined by humanism, a worldview that seeks to affirm human dignity and progress through secular means. Humanism, as championed by organizations like the British Humanist Association, promotes naturalism, rational debate, evidence-based reasoning, cooperation, progress, and individual dignity. At first glance, these principles appear laudable, perhaps even necessary in our complex, interconnected world. However, when examined in the broader context of humanity's deepest crises, the cracks in humanism's foundation begin to show. The promise of rationality and evidence. Humanism's focus on naturalism, the idea that everything can and should be explained through observable, natural processes, rests on a philosophical commitment to rationality. Advocates of humanism claim that reason and evidence are the bedrock of all moral and ethical decisions. Yet, when humanists encounter the devastation wrought by modern civilization, climate disasters, economic inequality, war, and genocide, their appeal to reason and progress offers little in the way of meaningful solutions. Take, for instance, the environmental catastrophes exacerbated by the insatiable demands of advanced capitalism. Humanists, rooted in scientific evidence and cooperation, may advocate for sustainable solutions and technological innovations. But these solutions often fail to address the deeper existential questions about humanity's role in the destruction of the natural world. They propose that human cooperation and scientific innovation will save us, but they ignore the profound spiritual and ethical crises driving the exploitation of the Earth's resources. Progress at the expense of morality. Humanists pride themselves on the value of progress, but this, too, has its limits. What constitutes progress in a world defined by capitalist greed and the commodification of human life? Progress, as understood through humanism, is often aligned with material advancement, better technology, longer lifespans, more efficient systems. However, this version of progress is blind to the moral decay that comes with the relentless pursuit of growth at any cost. Consider the global arms industry, which churns out weapons in the name of progress, often in the name of defending human rights or securing peace. Yet these very tools of destruction enable wars that decimate entire communities, destabilize nations, and perpetuate cycles of violence. A humanist can advocate for rational debate, for peace, and for cooperation. But what do these ideals mean in the face of genocide or war crimes? When the machinery of modern life grinds down entire populations, the humanist offers little more than a hope in human reason. But is this hope enough? The crisis of individual dignity. One of humanism's core tenets is the dignity of the individual, a value that seems unimpeachable. Every person has inherent worth and should be treated with respect, humanists argue. Yet, when humanism operates without a deeper spiritual framework, the concept of dignity becomes increasingly hollow. In a world shaped by naturalism, where human beings are no more than the sum of their biological parts, how can one truly argue for intrinsic dignity? This issue becomes particularly stark when examining humanism's response to the suffering caused by war, genocide, and systemic poverty. Without an appeal to a higher moral law, or divine justice, humanism is limited to what can be seen, measured, and debated in public forums. The humanist response to suffering tends to be one of mitigation through policy changes, humanitarian aid, or political activism. Yet these responses often feel inadequate, for they address symptoms rather than the root causes of human suffering. Without a transcendent framework to ground human dignity, humanism risks reducing individuals to mere actors in a rationally constructed societal machine. Humanism's shallow comfort in times of crisis. In moments of true existential crisis, whether it be the death of a loved one, the annihilation of a people, or the destruction of an ecosystem, humanism falls short of offering the kind of solace that human beings naturally seek. The atheist humanist, who dismisses notions of the divine and eternal, is the last person many turn to when seeking comfort in times of profound loss. The brittle nature of a worldview that denies any ultimate meaning to existence is exposed in these moments. Without belief in a higher purpose or divine justice, humanism's attempt to provide meaning through rational debate and progress feels like cold comfort. The world's suffering cannot be resolved simply by appealing to reason or evidence. People yearn for something more, something that transcends the mere material realities that humanism holds dear. In a world where human life is often devalued by systems of oppression, a framework that sees humanity as more than just a biological accident is necessary. The ethical vacuum of atheist humanism. In sum, while the values of humanism may appear noble, they are ultimately shackled by their inability to address the deeper spiritual and existential needs of humanity. The promise of reason and progress sounds appealing in theory, but it falls short when confronted with the real, visceral crises that define our time. The destructive forces unleashed by advanced capitalism, the environmental devastation, and the moral bankruptcy of modern warfare require more than just an appeal to cooperation and evidence-based solutions. They require an ethical and spiritual framework that humanism, with its atheistic underpinnings, cannot provide. Humanism may offer a veneer of moral and political alternatives, but it lacks the depth to contend with humanity's most pressing challenges. When communities face destruction, whether through environmental collapse or violence, the atheist humanist is not the one we turn to for hope, solace, or meaning. For these things, we must look beyond the shackles of humanism.